We are up to five now declared candidates in the Conservative leadership race, joining Mel Stride, Tom Cleverly, Robert Jenrick and Tom Tugendhat. The latest to throw her hat in the ring, Dame Priti Patel, the former Home Secretary, announcing late last night that she is going to stand to be the new leader of the Conservative Party. She says this: "I can lead us in opposition and unite our party and get us match fit for the general election with unity, experience and strength." She's quite a formidable candidate. She's got decent support from what I hear in the Conservative parliamentary ranks, and also very popular, of course, amongst Conservative Party members who, under the systems that parties have for choosing leaders, will have the final say in this contest. But what do you think? What do you think about Dame Priti Patel becoming the next leader of the opposition? Is she what the Conservatives need? Do they need a sort of experienced, quite right-wing, hard-headed, fairly aggressive at times figure to take the fight to Labour? Does Priti Patel tick all those boxes? Or do they need someone who's far more of a break with the past, not someone who served in senior positions in government under the likes of Boris Johnson? And if it's not Priti Patel, who do you think it should be? And dare I say, what do you think it should be? By which I mean, what type of leader would you like to see the Tories elect? Would you like to see someone completely new? Someone who's never even served in the government? Because you might say, well, then they haven't got the experience. But you could just as well say they're not tarnished by the mistakes of what went before. A new generation of Tory leaders emerging, much like David Cameron did, to turn the party's fortunes around and start the long, long road back towards Parliament, back towards power, back towards government, back, you might say, towards credibility at this point in time. Dame Priti Patel, is she the answer to the Tories' problems? If not, who is? 0345 6060 973 is the time. I think she'll do reasonably well in this contest, I've got to say. I said to you yesterday morning, in fact, I think she's a sort of outside bet in this contest. She's not the front runner. That would be someone like Kemi Badenoch, possibly even James Cleverly. But I think she will take a few people by surprise over the next few weeks and months, Priti Patel. But I wonder about you. You can WhatsApp the same number I just read out. You can text me on 84850 or send me an Alexa message by saying, "Alexa, send a comment to LBC." You talked to a former advisor to David Cameron on this in just a moment. First, delighted to be joined this morning by Jonathan Gullis, former deputy chairman of the Conservative Party, who is supporting Priti Patel in her leadership bid. Mr. Gullis, good to have you on the programme this morning. Thank you very much indeed for your time. Why is she the right woman for the job in your view? Good morning.
Good morning, Ben. I think Priti is the right person for the job because Priti has the experience. She was in opposition working for William Hague after the 1997 general election, so has seen what a thumping defeat looks like and knows what is needed to rebuild the party, but also re-engage, most importantly, early on with our members who are our foot soldiers, the ones who go out and knock on those doors, deliver those leaflets, get councillors and MPs alike elected. She's also then, as you pointed out earlier, served in very senior positions within David Cameron, Theresa May and Boris Johnson's government. So has that big experience in big government roles, but has also served under different leaders who represent different sort of angles or the broad church of the Conservative Party, but did not serve or support anyone in the 2022 leadership contest and did not serve under Liz Truss or Rishi Sunak. Therefore, clear, unlike other contenders, from those regimes and served diligently on the backbenches. And even when she did rebel, as she did on Windsor Framework, just like when she was a Spartan when it came to Brexit, she didn't tour TV studios or write articles in newspapers, therefore damaging the Conservative Party brand. She kept her counsel, but still stuck to her principles. And I think that's the type of leadership that we're going to need to rebuild our party, re-engage our membership, listen to the country, and then come up with a bold set of policy proposals that means we can win the next general election.
You say she served in senior positions in various governments. Of course she has. Is that not part of the problem for many people, Jonathan, in the sense that she was so loyal to Boris Johnson, wasn't one of those resigned when everybody else was resigning as a matter of principle? She has been a very vocal supporter of him. Some of your colleagues will say she was there. She was right at the top, right next to the man in charge when all of this started to go wrong in the first place.
Well, what I would say to that regard is that Boris Johnson still remains a hugely popular figure within the Conservative Party ranks. And indeed, there are still large elements of the country in places like Stoke-on-Trent North, where I was proud to serve for the last 4.5 years, who still very fondly look upon Boris Johnson, thought he did an excellent job during the pandemic in terms of providing that support through furlough, COVID loans and grants to keep small, medium-sized businesses in particular going, and obviously making sure, in Priti's case, that she delivered with him on 20,000 new police officers that were recruited over that tenure. So she made the promises, she delivered them. She said we'll get Brexit done, take back control of our laws and our borders. She did indeed get that. But there will, of course, be some very fair questions thrown at her regarding immigration, both legal and illegal. And I can tell you that, number one, first of all, Priti introduced the points-based system. But of course, what did Priti want to do? She wanted to make sure that points-based system worked, but she was no longer in office as of October 2022, and so therefore wasn't able to implement the changes that she would have wanted in the position as Home Secretary. Because of course, when you introduce any new system, it goes through its rigor, it goes through its tests, you figure out where things are going right and where things are going wrong, and you respond and react to them. And that's what she did when she was in office many, many times. And as for illegal migration, she came up with the Rwanda scheme, which again, some may use as a stick to beat her with. I would suggest that would be wrong-headed. She was a world leader who came up with a unique proposal that we sadly never saw implemented.
£700 million, Jonathan, to see 4 people sent to Rwanda, and all of them voluntarily. That's a shocking failure of policy that was started by Priti Patel, wasn't it?
Well, Ben, it's a very fair question, but I would remind people that, first of all, we were fighting relentlessly in the courts, in part thanks to Labour's lefty lawyer mates who were making sure that at every turn they were blocking our proposals and blocking our action. We also then had the Labour Party actually then cancel the scheme, even though the flight was ready for this month. So ultimately, we haven't been able to actually see this policy be implemented. But what Priti did, which I think is important, is she didn't just do a deal with Rwanda to deport illegal migrants. She also did the deal with Rwanda to help develop economies in parts of the world where people in and around Rwanda are choosing to leave in order to enter mainland Europe illegally and then come on to the United Kingdom. The idea is to help build these economies in these other countries, particularly in places like the Middle East and the African continent, so that people in those countries don't feel a need to illegally enter Europe and therefore illegally come to the UK to better themselves, because they will have thriving economies in which to prosper within their own nations. That was the actual idea as well. It was building up these nations, whilst also making sure that we deal with the problem first at hand. And other mainland European countries, Ben, as you know, were looking to copy the Rwanda scheme.
Why would you want someone as party leader, Jonathan, who was found to have displayed behaviour, I'm quoting here from an independent investigation, behaviour that can be described as bullying, and who had not consistently met the high standards expected of her as Home Secretary? Is that the sort of person you want leading your party?
Well, Ben, I think that the individual that you're referring to who ran onto camera to shed some tears, I just didn't take seriously, in my own personal opinion, because this was an individual who had been in multiple different government departments and overseen multiple failures, but moved from pillar to post. But if this
Are you talking about the independent advisor on the ministerial code?
No, the individual in the Home Office at the time, I think the former permanent secretary, if I remember his position correctly, who was the one who felt that he had some treatment from Priti that he wasn't happy with. This individual has been passed pillar to post from different departments, unable to actually deliver on being the top civil servant that we need. And if this individual had been any member of a private business, they would have been sacked.
So the independent investigation you're saying was wrong. Priti Patel is not.
Well, I think the independent Priti Patel is not a bully at all. And the idea to even because I know Priti well enough. I know worked with her, where I've seen firsthand the diligent work she did. I know that because she provided 500 brand new Home Office jobs to Stoke-on-Trent, an area that she lived in whilst studying at Keele University.
Because she didn't bully you, Jonathan, it doesn't mean she's not a bully to other people.
Well, Ben, I'll give you another example. So at the birth of my daughter and my son, out of the blue, without telling anyone, Priti was getting in touch to see how I and my fiance was doing.
Asking how providing us lovely cards
and gifts, because that's the type of figure that she is.
Doesn't make her not a bully. Asking about someone's child does not mean you're not a bully.
So, Ben, I'm telling you, I've seen her interact with civil servants in the Home Office when I've been in meetings. I've seen her interact with colleagues at senior and junior levels by being in the room in meetings. At no stage is she bullied. Is she firm at times? Yes, she is. And that's good, because she challenges what's presented before her. She challenges the worldly view. She challenges the civil servant orthodoxy. She challenges colleagues who maybe come in with a perspective that they think is right, but she may not agree with. That's a positive thing. That's what we want to see in our democracy. Ministers should be leading, and ministers should be taking decisions that ultimately fall on their shoulders. And she takes that responsibility on herself. But of course, she expects the highest standards of others around her.
So the independent investigation was wrong?
Well, all I can tell you is, from my own personal interactions, and obviously things that I've observed, that this is not a narrative that I know of Priti whatsoever. But of course, the matter was dealt with. She took it, and was closed, and the chapter was closed, and we moved on.
Got to leave it there. Jonathan, thank you very much for coming on. Interesting to have you on the programme this morning. Jonathan Gullis, former Deputy Chairman of the Conservative Party, who, as he said, was the Stoke-on-Trent MP until the general election.